this is our first vlog of the season, and it's 2019, and we're going to start with the propagation season this time.
Okay, hi, my name is Conway. So we're going to be talking today about starting seeds indoors. So some of the basic things you basically look at when you're starting seeds is you want to try to make sure that your containers that you're using to start your seeds should be clean. If you're reusing any old containers, make sure they're soaked in something like a bleach solution, let's say 1 to 9, 1 part bleach to 9 parts water, soak it overnight, give them a good rinsing, dry them off, and they're ready, good to go. Also make sure that any of your soil or pot mix that you're using to start seeds should be sterilized to begin with. Don't use anything out of the garden, because stuff in the garden right now behaves differently when you put in a container. Like for instance, they may contain undesirable weeds, insect diseases, or in some cases they just don't seem to drain that readily. So you can actually buy something like a seedling type mix, like this particular black gold one right now, where everything has been pre-prepped. You can also find recipes online that you can actually use to actually make your own particular type of recipes. When you're sort of growing seeds, we always try to make sure that the seeds that you're using right now have been tested for viability. So if they're brand new seeds that you're buying in a package, they're fine. You know, they'll usually, like for instance, in the case of West Coast seeds, they'll tell you how much is the germination. So most of the fresh seeds, if they're bought that current year, they should be really fine. But if you're taking seeds from previous years and you don't know how long they've been around, you know, they've been sticking around in the garage or basement for Lord knows how long, you may want to do a pre-germination test. So the quickest way of doing a pre-germination test is sort of take a piece of paper towel, some sort of paper towel, where you can maybe put maybe 10 seeds off that particular one and do them in lots of 10. And then sort of leave them pre-moistened, put them in the plastic bag, and sort of see how many actually will germinate maybe after a week or so. So if, let's say, 3 out of 10 sprouted, and then another bag had maybe 4 out of 10 sprouted, then you can roughly say that your percentage is going to be very low. That'll be about 30 to 40% of your actual seeds are going to be actually viable. In that particular case right now, that means you're probably going to have to use more seeds when you're planting, just to make sure that you get enough seeds to actually emerge, rather than thinking that those seeds, all of them are going to come out, because not necessarily all of them will come out. When seeds are actually growing, when you buy seeds, seeds are actually a dormant organism that is yet to be alive. And it becomes alive once you sort of pre-soaked it in water. So when you get water, it starts to activate the biological process. Also making sure that you have the appropriate temperature. So the temperature is talking about what we talk about is room temperature. Let's say it's 20 degrees Celsius. You can also buy some heating mats that can actually give you some warmth in the bottom of the tray. All right, there's different ways of sort of doing that right now. But the warmer the temperature, let's say it's roughly around 20 degrees Celsius, is really ideal. You can actually measure soil temperature both in terms of getting a soil thermometer that can actually be measured in the actual container, or especially if you're doing it outside in the garden. But since you're starting them inside, the nice thing about starting seeds inside is you actually beat the odds of not having to deal with what Mother Nature is offering you outside, which can be at times very, very extreme. Another thing we also want to make sure is that your seeds have appropriate light. Not only in some cases for them to emerge, but also to sort of grow on. Make sure that your seeds are actually planted in a mixture that has some sort of moisture. So in this particular case, this is a mixture of using peat moss and perlite that's been finely sifted. So in this particular case right now, I'm going to put that all in this particular what we call a flat or seed tray. It actually has holes in it. So much like any other container right now, if you're going to grow anything right now, you must have a hole in the container so that the water can drain out. You spread the tray out evenly. Tap it lightly so things will actually settle. You can also keep adding some more up to a certain point, so we're not going to get overgrown. So we're just going to tap it down so it gives out some of the extra airspace. Oops. Bigger clumps come out. Okay. So when you're growing seeds in a particular type of container, whether it be a seed tray or a particular pot right now, try to stick to seeds that are more or less in the same general category. So in other words, I don't want to be trying to mix in things like lettuce seeds with things like carrot seeds, or things like tomatoes, because you'll find that certain things will come out really quickly and other things will be very, very sort of take their time. Like for instance, carrots can take upwards to 2 to 3 weeks, is not unusual. So we're just going to smooth it all out. Tap it so it settles. Make sure we get all the bigger clumps out the best we can. Firm the edges down a bit on the sides. So you get your seeds in here right now. In this case, this happens to be a type of pepper seed from West Coast Seeds right now for it.
Is there a goal in the back? You know, the height?
For the height that we're looking at right now, this one is supposed to grow and set fruit within 7 to 75 days. They don't have a particular height currently on this package. It might be on the catalog. But usually for pepper plants right now, there's going to be plants of maybe about this big, depending on what we're growing in right now for it. But for the purpose of what we're doing here right now, we're just going to show some basic principles how they actually get started with seeds. When you're taking your seed packages, and the nice thing about West Coast Seeds is that their seed packages are supposedly resealable. But when you do open up your seed packages right now, try not to remove the name. A lot of people right now, when they remove the name right now, you don't remember what the seeds are. And then you're trying to figure out what the heck was it right now. I knew it was pepper, but you took the name off of it. This one is going to be a bit. Thank you. Let's see, this one is pretty good. Anyway. So there's different ways of sort of sowing seeds in there right now for it. You can actually, in this case right now, actually tap it in the tree. When you're planting seeds, one other thing we're looking at right now is to make sure you plant your seeds no more than 2 to 3 times the actual thickness of the seeds. If the seeds are very, very small, in other words, they look almost dust-like right now, you can just basically just sprinkle them right on top of the soil and just water it down with a mister bottle. Or if they're quite big, in other words, like the size of your thumb, like for instance your bean seeds or pea seeds right now, you have to make sure those things are buried at least so they don't actually stick onto the surface. So they may have to be pushed down lightly into the soil. In this case right now, for your pepper seeds right now, they are a little bit bigger. I'm going to make a bit of a shallow trench. If for those who have problems in terms of seeing seeds, another tip that's also been suggested is mixing a little bit of white silica sand into your seeds, so that way you can actually see what's actually going in the tray. So in this case, we're going to actually sprinkle it carefully down the row here right now for it. We want to try to make sure that your seeds are also properly spaced. So try not to be too ambitious and try to crowd too many seeds together right now, because you'll find that when the seeds do come up right now, they start crowding each other out right now. And that's even more important, especially when we start getting out into the garden, when you're planting seeds in the garden. We're going to cover it very, very lightly. And then just basically lightly pat it down. And then we'll repeat the process again, whether we do them in rows or if you want to scatter the whole thing right now for it. Because this soil is basically slightly pre-moistened, it's not bone dry. We're going to basically just mist it down with something like a mister bottle. Some people may use a watering can, but just a light misting. Just enough to sort of settle the things down and give you a bit of moisture right now for it. And there's no need for any other further watering, because we're going to be using a dome or some sort of cover in this particular case right now to go over the seed to sort of keep the moisture in place. In this particular case, this particular dome does have vents on it, so that allows you to sort of ventilate if you have a lot of condensation going on in there right now for it. And this seed flat will be placed either on top of a heating cable if you want to get something with some temperature from the bottom, but in some sort of a brightly lit area right now for it to allow the seeds to sort of germinate. For those of you who are starting seeds out for the first time, especially, let's say for instance vegetables, try to get seeds that are usually big enough to sort of handle, especially quite good for younger kids, but also at the same time the bigger the seeds, they come out a lot more faster as a general rule of thumb. You may notice that there are other stuff that you may come across in the store that look something like this. This happens to be some Jiffy pellets, which of course when you put it in water, maybe after about half an hour or so, they turn into a very big, large marshmallow, which is basically has a hole on the top part and that you can actually insert your seeds straight into it. So it's basically what I call a 2-in-1. Instead of buying just your individual containers, whether it be plastic or in this particular case it's biodegradable peat pots, you don't have to buy any potting mix. The mix is already in there right now, and all you have to do is basically just put your seeds directly into that thing and just cover it up lightly. These things are really great, especially if you're growing things that don't like to have the roots disturbed. So in other words, I'm looking at things like sweet peas, zucchinis, cucumbers. Those other things right now don't like being disturbed in there right now for it. Once the plants have emerged out there more or less, you start seeing enough green in here right now for it, you'll lift the dome up. You'll still continue watering as need be. Okay, or you can use watering can, however way you want to sort of do it right now for it. Making sure, of course, everything's labeled so you know what you're having right now for it. Then you'll find the first set of leaves that come out are usually what they call the baby leaves. Those are the called leaves. Once the plant starts developing the second pair of leaves, those are what we call the true leaves. In this particular case right now, that's when the plants are going to have to be separated into some sort of a larger container. In this particular case right now, we can probably transfer it into a 4-inch biodegradable peat pot, and you just fill up with some sort of, let's say, outdoor potting mix right now for it. Will be more than sufficient. You can start your fertilizing program right away using some sort of, you can use organic stuff right now. Follow the directions carefully on the package right now. More is not necessarily good right now, to sort of get the plants going in there right now for it. Another rule of thumb that we're basically looking at right now, when you're looking at, let's say, vegetable seeds as an example right now, they are divided into 2 categories. The plants that usually like cool temperatures, all your greenery and your root crops, like to be done when the temperature outside is on at least 10 degrees or higher during the daytime. But if you're growing things like in this case, example with the peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, or zucchinis, they need warmer temperatures. So there's no point in starting it right now, very, very early in the season, let's say in January, because by the time they come up right now, it'd still be too cold for them to go outside. So for your zucchinis, your tomatoes, your peppers, your corn, those type of things right now, either they're going to be planted directly into the garden soil once the temperature is warm enough, or you're going to have to sort of do it when the temperature at nighttime is at least 10 degrees or higher. Where the light is going to be stored in the house?
Yeah, for the seedling.
I said that it should actually be put into a brightly lit area.
Yeah.
The more light, the better. Another thing you should also notice right now is that if you keep your place really, really warm, and if you don't have enough adequate lighting, you'll find that your seeds will get very leggy. So if possible, try to increase your lighting, but keep your temperature slightly on the cool side, and that will end up with plants being a lot more stockier.
Sounds good. Well, that's the end of the first vlog, and we will have another one coming in the middle of this coming month. We're looking around middle of February, and hopefully you'll enjoy our gardening tips for this season. Thank you.
Thank you.